All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Yep, we are live. Just double checking when everything's working here. Audio's good. We are live here at Moneyline MMA a day later than usual. It is Tuesday afternoon, the 24th. We're going to be covering our picks and bets for UFC Paris. This will be occurring this Saturday, of course, headlined by Renato Moicano versus Benoit Saint Denis. These fights are going to be daytime fights, so keep that in mind if you're over here on the U.S. side of things. These fights will be starting with the prelims at 11 a.m. Central Time on Saturday the 28th. So be ready for some daytime fights if you're looking to watch these on the American side of the universe. That being said, before we get too deep into our picks for this coming Saturday, let's get into the picks that we made before the break. We had a week off last week, but before that, we had, of course, the UFC Noche, the Sphere, UFC 306. Jose and I had a brilliant night. Unfortunately, the one and only loss really being Merab beating Sean O'Malley for the belt. Of course, that was my 5-weight being Sean O'Malley, so that's a 5-weight loss for me. It's a tough one, but if you listen to the show and followed along, you still wouldn't have lost money betting, because we still established multiple good winning bets, including Diego Lopez, who dominated Brian Ortega, and one of the better underdogs of the entire card, Esteban Ribovics. I picked him. It was a split decision, but in my opinion, that's crazy. Zellhuber shouldn't have even gotten a split. Ribovics really just countered his way to beating Zellhuber in that fight. I think he would win again if they fought again this Saturday. So, for me, man, I really like that Ribovics pick, and I won a good amount of money on him. On top of the fact that Josh Van, I put him as my 2-weight. He came out strong. It got the job done. The only other loss I had on the books was Alexa Grasso. And to be fair, she did get wrestled pretty badly. So that's a pick that both Jose and I had as our 1-weights. Very low confidence pick from us. But hey, it is what it is. Props to Shevchenko for wrestling her way to victory. That's how she needed to really do it, just given the strength that she had in that part of the game, the way she was able to use it in their second fight to almost win a decision. Got to give Shevchenko credit. We'll see how long she can hold that belt, though, as she is getting a little up in years. And I don't know, man. I think if you give Grasso a year, Grasso wins that belt back. But at this point, we're not looking for a fourth fight between the two. At least I'm not. I think we got to move on to some other bigger and better things. But that being said, those are our picks from UFC 306. We're going to move on to our picks coming up from this Saturday. And just as a reminder to anyone who isn't already aware, we make our picks here at Moneyline MMA in order of confidence. So we're going to take 5 fights. Currently 14 are scheduled for UFC Paris. We're going to pick 5 of those fights and rank them in order of confidence. Keep in mind that these are picks. These are not bets. Just because I'm picking a 5-weight fighter does not mean I just automatically have bet on him. It depends on the value there, right? I am picking a fighter to win, but that does not mean I am putting my hard-earned money on him to win. That is a stark contract difference. As simple as that. If a guy that I really like to win is minus 500, I'm probably not betting minus 500 unless I'm absolutely, I have to be some of the most confident I've ever been to be putting single money on minus 500. And obviously that's just a random example, but it's all about value too. So just keep in mind, if you are listening and you're like, Jose picked so-and-so, so I'm going to bet all my bankroll on him. Don't do that, all right? Because we're just making picks here. We're establishing who we think we're going to win, and we'll mention if we think that there's good value in the money line, or if there's good value on a round prop or something like that, right? We'll mention that. We've already done it a few times. We'll mention winning method suggestions, right? We think this guy's going to win by KO or he loses, right? Those are all things that we might mention, but it's not just to say that we're assuming, because we said it, that we have money on it. That's not at all the case. And just keep that in mind. If you want to know some of the exact bets we're making, feel free to reach out. But for this show, it is strictly picks. And that being said, we always start with our most confident picks here at Moneyline MMA, aka our 5-weight picks, and we're going to move down slowly to our 1-weight picks. We do not make these decisions together. These are separately made decisions that we just confer on before the show in order to know what order we go in, since the highest confidence goes first. And therefore, let's start off with my most confident pick of Saturday afternoon, which is going to be Joe Anderson Brito. This is currently the feature bout of Saturday afternoon. I can't even say night. This is going to be during the day, at least out here in the United States. This is a featherweight bout between one guy who kind of likes to, he's like a tactician. He's a Frenchman. He likes to kind of avoid big shots, and he's got 7 KO wins and 0 KO losses. So don't get me wrong, William Gomez can be exciting. He's coming off of a body kick win against Giannis Gamori, and in an interesting fashion, Brito's kind of coming off of a kick win as well. It just wasn't a kick knockout or a body kick to the liver or anything. It was a kick that just split open Jack Shore's shin so bad that his leg looked red. Like it looked like they painted his leg red. There was so much blood flowing out of it. They had to stop the fight. He wasn't even going to be conscious with the amount of blood loss he was seeing. So they had to call that fight. Joe Anderson Brito is obviously my 5-weight pick here, as I've already mentioned. He is the favorite too. Keep in mind, looking here at FanDuel using their sportsbook, Joe Anderson Brito is minus 290. So that's almost 3-1 odds that Brito gets the job done. So kind of going back to the value thing, right? Like, I'm not sure that there's a huge amount of value here and just taking a single on Joe Anderson Brito. But boy, am I confident he gets the job done. He is aggressive. He's going to come in hot against William Gomez. And I'm going to go so far as to say that he beats William Gomez in all phases of the game. I'm way more concerned about Brito getting a KO than Gomez tactfully getting a decision win. I get it. Gomez is coming off that body kick win, but that's just not something I'm concerned about with Joe Anderson Brito. I think he's way too tough. He's not the kind of guy who's taking one body shot and going down. Brito's going to be the one dealing those heavy body shots. And to be honest, man, I just think he's going to come in super aggressive, and he's going to finish this fight. I'm pretty confident in that. I mean, if you want to take a look at making some bets here, you would look at a finish. Most likely, you would probably say Brito by KO or submission, because that at least gives you the both coverages inside the distance. Brito has 3 straight finish wins, with 2 of them being against pretty good up-and-coming fighters, I would say, in Jack Shore and Jonathan Pierce. William Gomez is winning his fights, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, a majority decision against Yarno Aarons just doesn't impress me that much. And again, I definitely like the kick, knockout, body shot, whatever against Giannis Gamori, but even Giannis Gamori now most recently got finished by Peyton Talbot, who I get is also a great prospect. But is that loss really, or win look really that good if he's now lost multiple in a row? So I just don't see the styles is the word I'm looking for. The techniques from Gomez in being that kind of tactician striker, looking to get that knockout, right? Even against Gamori, it was a round 3 knockout. He takes a little time to get used to his opponent, to feel him out, and then he starts throwing the counter strikes for power. I don't think he's going to even get the chance to do that here against Brito. So yeah, Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, Nick, I agree with you on this one. I feel highly on Brito. He's actually my 4-weight, and you said it best. I think he's going to come in aggressive. I think William Gomez, he's hasn't seen a guy quite like Brito yet. He hasn't had as much experience in the UFC as Brito. Brito, he's already beaten some dudes that I like that he's being like Jack Shore and Jonathan Pierce. But that being said, yeah, Brito, they're both finishers, but Brito is more well-versed, I think. I think he's more likely to even submit William Gomez. I like that. I like him engaging, closing the distance, and going for the takedown and going for the submission on Gomez. I think that's almost like I do think he can knock Gomez out, but no, Gomez is a dangerous striker. So I think Brito will do fine on the feet. We'll blitz him. But I think that's the best suit in William Gomez's defense, in his defense. So I think that Brito, his best way would be ultimately getting to the ground and pounding and looking for a submission. William Gomez, he's only out of his 2 losses, only one of them has come by submission. He has yet, out of his 15 professional fights, has yet to be knocked out. So I like Brito a lot, and I'm gonna if I were to take an edge, and I'm just gonna take him by decision, but I kind of lean towards submission if he goes for a victory on this one.
Hey Jose, do you mind turning down? Your mic is really loud. Like it almost sounds like you were like yelling into it. Can you turn that down just a little?
Hey, how's that?
It's still pretty loud.
How about that?
Yeah, that's much better. That's much better. Appreciate it. But yeah,
Yeah,
that being
sure.
said, yeah, so we do agree then on Joe Anderson Brito. I think maybe we don't have the complete. We're not seeing 2020 maybe on the finish there, because I do agree that Brito has some submission chance there. But just because Gomez hasn't been KO'd before, that doesn't really scare me. I don't think he's fought anybody of Brito's caliber. So the KO, okay, cool, he hasn't been KO'd yet. To me, that's not concerning at all. I think Brito is by far the biggest power striker he has faced in his career. I mean, Brito was able to finish a guy like Andre Fili. Honestly, I don't think William Gomez would knock out a guy like Andre Fili right now. And look at Brito doing it in the first round. I don't know, man. I think Brito's the guy that takes something to Gomez that he hasn't seen yet in the UFC. And just because he hasn't gotten knocked out yet doesn't scare me. I think he gets knocked out or finished.
Yeah, I would say if he finishes him, if he does go for the knockout too, he has a lot of knockouts like right in the first round. So if he finishes Gomez, I would think it would almost be early then, because I think once it goes past that, he doesn't have many finishes yet beyond that. Few even more, even a lot of submissions come right in the first two. So yeah, I like Brito ending this one early.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I mean, we could even go back to okay, let's keep bringing up names, right? We want to talk about who has Brito win and who has Gomez beat. I mean, Brito has finished Chepe Mariscal. Oh my gosh, Chepe is on a great run lately. He has been dominating other people. And then, okay, cool. How about Diego Lopez? Oh my gosh. Okay, so this wasn't a finish, but he beats Diego Lopez in the Contender Series. I get this is a few years ago, right? So we're talking almost borderline irrelevance for how the time span. Of course, if Brito and Lopez fought today, it would be a different story. But I'm just saying, man, the levels that Brito has seen and gone through here in his UFC tenure just seems to be way higher than what Gomez has. And I don't know. This also seems like to bring up the storyline kind of side of it too. I just feel like Brito is the guy the UFC would love to see making a push for the title. So not that Gomez couldn't in the future, but yeah, I don't know. Gomez right now just doesn't seem like the kind of threat that you would expect to get out of a future champion.
I agree with that one, Nick. Especially, I feel like there's still a lot yet to see of William Gomez, in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, Gomez's time could come, but I just don't think it's going to be against Brito here, and you agree. So, yeah, that'll be 9 combined confidence points on Joe Anderson Brito, most likely to be the lock of the week for Moneyline MMA, unless something changes and or we have a higher, a.k.a. unless Jose's 5-weight is also my 4-weight, and then we get a tie. But otherwise, there's not possible to have another 9 confidence fighter on our card. With that said, we'll move on to Jose's most confident pick.
Yeah. How's the volume here, Nick?
Oh,
Is
it's
this
good.
better?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Yeah, so for my 5-way, this is actually going all the way to the main event already. Between Moicano and Benoit Saint Denis. Right now, Ronaldo Moicano, he is the betting underdog at plus 215, while Benoit Saint Denis is the betting favorite at minus 290. We also, both had after last one's Saint Denis coming off a loss to Dustin Poirier, getting knocked out. Dustin was somewhat of a big underdog on that one, and to be honest, I wasn't too surprised though with that pick, just because I just felt like Benoit Saint Denis was getting pushed a little too quick. But I think this matchup with Ronaldo Moicano is a better matchup for him. I think this is where he needs to be, like fighting some dudes like in the upper 10s, more like 10 to 15 range. Even I would say like 8. He's hanging out right there very well. But at most, I would say, but getting pushed all the way to someone in the top 5, I just wasn't. I just kind of expected that to happen, and I wasn't surprised that Dustin Poirier finished him. But that being said, I think he's gonna make a big strong comeback in this one. He's gonna bounce back against Moicano. He had a phenomenal win against Jalen Turner earlier this year. It looked like he was going to get finished in the first round. Then he comes back and he gets the finish himself. So he's riding on a 3-fight winning streak against Brad Riddell, Drew Dober, and Jalen Turner. These are some big names, but not the biggest, not the best names. If anything, I kind of like those names. They're kind of comparable to the dudes that Benoit Saint Denis has been beating, like Matt Frivola, Thiago Moises, Ismael Bonfim. Both good names, but definitely not the biggest names in the top 1 through 8 for sure. So I like this matchup a lot, and I think Benoit Saint Denis, I think he's gonna have the better hands in this matchup. I think he's gonna have just superior boxing and just lay heavy hands on Moicano. The only thing is with Benoit Saint Denis, he does take a lot of damage back, and Moicano could bounce back. And when it comes to the takedown, though, I'm giving it all the takedown advantage. I'm giving it all to Benoit Saint Denis. He has he on average for a 3-round fight has a 4.76 takedown average, And with me, I think that that's going to play role in this game. I think he's going to play a little smart and try not to get loose and crazy like he did against the Dustin Poirier fight. That Dustin Poirier fight was just a big, I think, just a learning lesson for him for sure. And I think he's going to become in a little more composed and even scarier in this matchup. So I like Benoit Saint Denis so much that he's my 5 weight on this one. What are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
We do agree. This will be an agreement, but it will be a little less confident. So instead of my 4 weight, I have BSD as my 3 weight pick. And being quite honest, man, coming into this, I was ready to take Renato Moicano as the dog on this card. I really have a lot of respect for his ability, even though it's like in the face of a loss, in the face of just like not looking as good. Moicano just comes out and gets the job done sometimes. Of course, against Jalen Turner, he kind of held the fight in control the whole time until he got the knockout win in the second round. Drew Dober isn't necessarily a huge name. Like it's a good win, but like Drew Dober is mostly just like a knockout test kind of thing, and he was able to ride that out and also wrestle him a little bit for 15 minutes to get the decision win. And it kind of comes down to that where I fade Moicano a little bit, where it's like Moicano's true, like he's been able to get some submissions, yes, but it's really against primarily strikers and guys that aren't much of a threat at all. Like when Moicano did fight Ortega, granted this was now a long time ago, right? But still in the UFC, Ortega was the one that submitted Moicano. So I just don't think Moicano's like necessarily a jiu-jitsu bully or wrestling bully by any means. I just think he utilizes it against the fighters that he sees an advantage on. And to me, there's just no way he sees an advantage on Benoit Saint Denis on the ground. Like you said, man, Benoit is just a freak of nature in the pace that he sets. And honestly, this also comes down to, in a big part, if you ask me, to do you believe he had staph infection, right? The whole thing going into the Poirier fight is he had that mark like right here on his head, and it was like, he has staph infection, so you got to take antibiotics. And look, I don't have as much personal experience with having to take antibiotics and then do some rigorous physical activity, but apparently it does drag on your cardio a lot, and it doesn't allow you to really recover like you might be able to in between rounds. And if you truly believe that Benoit Saint Denis had that staph infection and was taking antibiotics and was inhibited by said inability, right, to recover as fast, then you take him so fast in this fight against Moicano. I think he's got the advantage by far in the wrestling and jiu-jitsu grappling game in general. And from there, I mean, this man's riding, what, 5, 6 straight finishes, with 5 of them being KOs. I mean, it is nuts. Okay, so sorry, it's four KOs and 2 submissions, but 6 straight finishes. I mean, this guy does not mess around. Of course, that one finish is Poirier knocking him out. So he might get finished, but it's Poirier, man. It's Dustin Poirier. I think we all understand that Poirier fights Moicano, and it might not even get to the second round. Poirier is the dog. Poirier retirement fights Moicano to go out on a win. So I don't know. We're gonna have to see some sort of improvement from Moicano here, in my opinion, for him to really keep up and do the dance with BSD on the feet here. I think we're just gonna see too much power and not enough of an ability for Moicano to lean back on getting a takedown like he has in his last 2 fights, really, to get a win. I guess I can't say it as much against Jalen Turner because he knocked him out, but there's no doubt about it. Without the wrestling against Drew Dober, he probably doesn't win that fight. And that's kind of scary, man. I would take Benoit Saint Denis minus 1,000 versus Drew Dober. It wouldn't even be close. So, yeah, man, I also will say, like, I am someone on the train, too, of people who think, yeah, Benoit Saint Denis, maybe he didn't have the worst case of staph infection, but he was not 100% healthy going into that fight against Dustin Poirier. And if he is 100% healthy going into this fight against Moicano, I don't even think it's going to be close. But that said, I had to make him my 3-weight. I have a little more confidence in the guy we'll discuss next for my 4-weight. And I do agree with BSD, but man, I got to give a little respect to Moicano and what he's been able to do with some of his finishes in the UFC.
I agree with you, Nick, and just the toughness that Moicano has shown makes me believe that if Saint Denis gets this win, it could be his first decision win. Actually, out of his 13 wins, he's actually never gone to decision in his professional career. So, I was gonna say, like, if I could see him knocking out Moicano because of the Moicano out of his 5 losses. We already seen his chin, and he has been knocked out 3 times. And so if I was gonna give it, like, I was thinking maybe Denis via knockout, but now I'm starting to say that I think Moicano may be tough enough, especially because his grappling it is pretty good. So I think like he would be good enough to survive and just lose unanimously to Saint Denis. For me, this one is almost hard for me to say that Saint Denis will finish Moicano for sure, but I'm so confident that he's just going to win this that I'll keep it at that. And yeah, I have Saint Denis as my 5 weight.
And that brings up a good point too, man. With the decision, like, if I'm being honest, like, I'm not saying I disagree with you on the chance of decision because of Moicano's toughness, but I will be honest in saying that concerns me a little bit for Benoit Saint Denis because of the fact that he has not gone to decision since 2021. It's been years, man. He just kind of walks through people, or it's Dustin Poirier that's just kind of on the next level that gets a counter KO win in the second round. I mean, when his last decision fight was against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, who's a good fighter. At one time, he was one of the bigger prospects, but he's kind of fallen on more tough times lately with a lot of decision finishes that he wasn't always able to win. But in that fight specifically, you can see Benoit Saint Denis' numbers drop through the fight, right? He's throwing 50 strikes in round 1, he's throwing 70 strikes in round 2, and then he's throwing 40 strikes in round 3. And I get it, we can't just look at strike counts and say, oh, he got tired, he gassed out. But I don't know, man. There's some element to that where Benoit does not go to decision. He's probably relying on the fact that he can finish anyone he fights in the first 15 minutes. So it's like, how much is he really ready for this fight to go 15 minutes and for it to be a war from beginning to end? I'm not saying he isn't ready, but I'm also not saying I'm confident he is. So we'll have to see. But yeah, that being said, we do have an agreement here. That'll be my 3-weight and Jose's 5-weight on BSD. Moving forward, we're going to head to my 4-weight of Saturday afternoon, and I'm going to take us out of the main card for this 4-weight. There's a lot of prelims on this card. Actually, there's 14 fights on this card. I believe there was 10 for UFC 306. So it's just interesting that they're like, yeah, let's bring out all the guys to Paris, but we're not going to do it for the Vegas UFC Noches card. I don't know. That was a little bit interesting. Even considering there weren't that many cancellations for UFC Noches, they were able to find replacements for a lot of them. But that's honestly stuff in the past. It's just an interesting observation I made in the number of fights on this card. But either way, my 4-weight's going to be on Ludovic Klein. He will be fighting Roosevelt Roberts, of course, in the lightweight division. Roosevelt Roberts has had, a previous UFC stint, and then he left the UFC, and he's now coming back to the UFC. He's kind of come in and out of his UFC tenures, found some other success in other divisions or other promotions, and has come back to the UFC. But honestly, man, let's just get down to it. Like, there's really no reason for me to babble on about this fight. I mean, we can let the odds really do the story talking for us here, at least in terms of FanDuel. He's looking. Ludovic Klein is currently a minus 1,200 favorite. I mean, for anyone that's unexperienced, that means you have to bet $1,200 to win 100 on betting on Ludovic Klein. That is a lot. That is insane, right? So this goes back to what I said at the beginning of the show. I'm picking Ludovic extremely confidently here, and of course, I'm not just going to be blindly betting $1,200 on him to win 100. It's the UFC. Anything can happen. Roosevelt Rogers is still a professional, and he could still land something or maybe drag this fight out and get it to a decision. But I think that chance is below 5%. I mean, with that said, it's still within the bounds of making a decent bet. But, man, that single is just so steep. Simply said, though, Ludovic Klein is just better in all facets of the game, if you ask me. He's a better striker. He's more dangerous on the feet. And I would take Ludovic Klein in a grappling situation. Not that either of these guys are heavy grapplers or guys that I would be like, oh, yeah, he's really live for a submission in all of his fights. But there's no doubt about it. Ludovic Klein has 17 finishes in his career, and they're split 9 KOs, 8 submissions. He's shown the ability to get wins in both areas of the game, as well as 5 decision wins. So we're talking 4 total losses in his career, and all methods of win method, right? Whether it's KO, submission, or decision, he's able to prove in all 3 of those areas. And Roosevelt Roberts has been okay, right? He's just been okay. and specifically lately, he's been worse than okay. He got finished against Bahamondes, who granted looked good at UFC Noche, so it's hard to blame getting KO'd by a guy looking that good. But even more recently against Mateusz Rebecki, he gets submitted by an armbar in the first round. It just wasn't even close. Roberts didn't look like he had a chance from the start. So it's just one of those spots where I feel like the UFC says, all right, Ludovic, you're coming to that later. He's 29 years old. He's getting to that stage where he really should start improving and getting the better fighters as he keeps getting wins. And UFC is saying, here's your storyline. Get this win inside the distance and move on. We'll give you some better competition, but we need you to get a win inside the distance to get that hype going for you first. So go ahead and put it down, man. Ludovic Klein's going to win this fight by KO or submission. What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, Nick. So I did not actually talk about this fight, but I really like your pick a lot on Ludovic. The just because Roosevelt Roberts, it's already his second stint with the UFC as well, and he is the taller guy in this matchup. But Ludovic looks like he's really gonna come in just look thick and strong, and I just think he's gonna be a powerhouse and almost bulldoze through Roosevelt. That's the way I see it. Roosevelt, like nothing like again against him, but he's had a long career, but like Ludovic for being already slightly younger than him has a lot more fights than him too. He actually has 10 more wins in general too. So Ludovic for being a 29-year-old, he's extremely experienced, and compared to Roosevelt being 30. And again, Roosevelt has a lot of experience. Again, his second stint in the UFC, but as you mentioned, like he's got armbarred by an older Jim Miller. Granted, it's Jim Miller, and then he has that he's part of Ignacio Bahamundes's highlight reel forever with that crazy spinning KO kick. And I think that's just more than enough to see out of Roosevelt on my end to know, Ludovic is going to bulldoze through him. So I did not make a pick on this one, but man, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, the odds for Ludovic is insane. Strong favorite. I definitely should have ranked him, but if not, definitely, he's definitely a great pick. Even though I don't have him on my ranking list right now, he definitely would have been really high up there for me. But I agree with you on Ludovic.
Sounds good. And yeah, don't get me wrong. There's going to be ways to attack this. It's just not going to be with a straight money line bet on Ludovic. So keep an eye it is already Tuesday. So the, round props and winning methods are all going to be coming out very soon, if not already. So keep an eye out for that. That's going to be some of your ways to kind of beat the line, for the lack of a better term, because I can guarantee you I'm not betting minus 1,200 on anybody. Just about at least anybody, specifically in a single bet. And I just don't think it's really conducive to a parlay either. Like if you're going to parlay 4 or 5 fighters and you throw Ludovic Klein in there, you're adding cents to the dollar, man. You might as well leave him out and just in case, right? It is the UFC. These guys are still professionals. And even though I'm pegging Ludovic Klein as a 95+% chance to win, I can't ever guarantee anything. And I know Jose and I have both seen fights lost from fighters that should have certainly won, but they did something stupid and it caused a loss. So we can't put that past anybody, even champions like Sean O'Malley. So with that being said, very, very confident picking Ludovic Klein here. Just make sure as you're making your bets that you're careful with the parlay positions, and you aren't going to be taking money line. Let's go and look at either a winning method specifically or a round prop. That said, let's move forward then, and we could discuss Jose's three-way. We've already discussed, yeah.
Yes. So for my three, so for my three-weight, this is going to be the welterweight between Kevin Josette and Brian Battle. Right now, Kevin Josette is the betting underdog at plus 146, while Brian Battle is a betting favorite at minus 188. In this one, I like Brian Battle a lot. Just seeing him making his way up in the rankings, just slowly just showing that dog in him. There's been chances where he looked like he was going to lose and comes back and makes a win. And right now he's 10-2, 30 years old. I mean, honestly, besides that last no contest accidental eye poke that happened against Lusa earlier this year, I haven't really seen any reason for me to be against Brian Battle. And on the other hand, Kevin Joseph as well. I haven't seen enough of him. And that's the thing because he's only been in the UFC twice. He made his UFC debut, got a first round submission last year in September on the Adesanya versus Strickland card, and he came back and got a unanimous decision win. So thus far, his 2 appearances in the UFC have been nothing short of spectacular. He's looked just phenomenal overall. Just getting a win right away or just dominating all 3 rounds. So I think Ryan Battle is going to be one of his tougher fights for sure because Brian Battle is not going to go down. I don't see him finishing Brian Battle in the first round, and if it goes to the decision, he has to make Brian Battle lost by unanimous decision before. That was a couple years ago now, back in 2022. But since then, he's racked up 2 wins, a first round KO and a second round submission. And how they match up too physically. Both guys aren't too far off from each other. 162, 161. I like Brian Battles. Just he has a short 2-inch reach advantage, so I think that's gonna play some dividends. And he also has a high striking percentage when he lands 4.52 significant strikes per minute. But and Brian Battle, like he does have power with him too. He even when he backs up and he's still landing shots, and he can be the guy that I think can knock someone out as he's backing up, and then he just explodes and can be a little not flashy, but just explode out of nowhere and just really cause serious damage there. So I like Brian Battle a lot. He may get rocked a few times. He does absorb 3.74 significant strikes per minute. And if Kevin Joseph, if he finds his groove, if the Frenchman finds his move, it could be his night. And it's really hard for me to see him dominating Brian Battle, especially because this will be his 3rd UFC fight, which is he is a professional overall. And he's had some stoppages earlier in his career too. Like he actually has a doctor stoppage in the 2nd round in a fight against Jack Della Maddalena. So that being said, like his losses aren't like there's a doctor stoppage and a split decision loss. So I think Josette is really good, and this is actually a really good matchup. We'll see exactly where he falls within the UFC. Brian Battle is going to be a tough test, and this should be a win for Brian Battle. But Kevin Josette is definitely, I don't think, a walk in the park for sure. What are your thoughts on this one, Nick?
I do agree as well. It sounds like we're agreeing a lot on this card here. Either we didn't make the pick together, or we agree. And I'm taking Brian Battle here for my 2-weight, and I largely agree with your sentiments. Right. I think Josette is he's got that submission win against Kiefer Crosby, but in general, I think Josette he comes out of city kickboxing, right? He's going to give you kind of what a lot of those city kickboxing guys do. I mean, a lot of French fighters you see like William Gomez, right? They're kind of like more calculated counter strikers, and I think that's part of the reason I'm picking Brito against Gomez, because I think the style there for Brito is just to come right at Gomez, and Gomez can't handle it. And you really don't. I don't think we're going to see that out of Josette. I don't think he's going to have that slow plodding style. At least from what we've seen from him so far, he does land a lot of volume, but he does take a lot of volume too. At least so far, right? It's a small sample size. In fact, even in his total professional fighting career, he's got 12 fights, and same with Brian Battle, right? But when we're talking strictly in the UFC, we're looking at 6 versus 2, or even 7 versus 2, right? So I would make the argument that Brian Battle has seen way better competition throughout those 12 fights than Josette does. So part of that is my handicap as well, in that I'm taking a guy who's just been there and done that in the UFC for longer and been able to consistently improve. We've seen Brian Battle win fights both by submission, by decision, and by KO. He's won fights in the UFC in all 3 ways. I think he's continuing to improve. So until I see Josette, take that massive step forward himself, which could happen, right? That's why I'm only putting Battle as my 2-weight. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I'm with you that Brian Battle is by far the toughest test Josette's going to have fought, and it's really going to be a litmus test for the lack of a better term there, and we'll really see what Juicet has. But there's no way I'm taking more of a UFC newcomer against a guy like Brian Battle, who honestly he was beating Ange Lusa until, in my opinion, Lusa was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna this eye poke. Oh, I can't fight anymore." He was losing. He was losing, and I'm not gonna say anything bad about Lusa because if I got poked in the eye, I wouldn't want to fight either. But all I gotta say is he was losing that fight when that happened. So, in my opinion, Brian Battle only has one loss, and not even that the no contest counts as a loss, but in my opinion, Brian Battle's a 6-1 in the UFC, and he's finished almost everybody outside of Trayshawn Gore, who isn't even a UFC caliber fighter. So I guess we could make that argument that it's like, well, he couldn't even finish a UFC caliber fighter. But hey, he's finished everybody else that he's beat in the UFC, and I fully anticipate that to be a risk against Juicet here. So Brian Battle, pretty confident pick out of me. Not quite as confident as Jose, but I'm still pretty confident. And Brian Battle would be a guy I would consider in some parlays if you want to get a little risky, because he is minus 188. You get some great returns, especially if you want to go, if you're confident in Battle and you want to, add in Brito, our money line pick of the week. You could probably push that down to like minus 130, minus 140, and I think that's a fantastic two-leg parlay to put together to get some good odds. So that's how I kind of like to attack parlays, instead of throwing guys like Ludovic Klein on there for minus 1200 and then maybe adding in Brian Battle. You're going to get like minus 170 or minus 175. I'm taking two fighters that are going to get me down to 130, and I'm pretty much just as confident that that parlay hits. So seems like we do agree anyway on Brian Battle. They're both bigger frame guys, so even though Brian Battle might have a 2-inch reach advantage, Juicet has a 1-inch height advantage, and we kind of saw that. I think I keep going back to the Gomez fight with Brito, because I want to say it was them. If it wasn't them, it was someone else. That there was like a pretty big height discrepancy, but the reach was the same. Yeah, it was Gomez, because Gomez is listed as 6 foot. Brito's listed as 5'8", so you'd be like, oh my gosh, how is Brito gonna get in? But when you look at their reach, it's a 1-inch difference. Depending on where you look at, they have the same reach. So I think that plays a big part into it as well, where Brito doesn't have to it's not like he's Volk versus Holloway, right? Where it's like he's got to pretty much take a full step forward to land that jab. I don't think that's going to be the case, and I also don't think that's going to be the case for Brian Battle here. I think he gets his aggressiveness land, and he'll go in there. I don't want to say finish, but he's going to get the win against Juicet. Just take that minus 188 and run with it.
Yeah, I 100% agree on that. Hard to say which way he'd beat Joseph, but definitely I'm just going with Brian Battle. Yeah, I'm going with Brian Battle, just taking the W overall. Yeah, he's my 3-weight, and he is your 2-weight. That being said, I think we're good to move on to my 2-weight. And that comes down to the bigger boys, the co-main event, the middleweight bout between Nasruddin Imavov and Brandon Allen. Right now, Nasruddin Imavov, he is a big betting favorite at minus 230, while Brandon Allen, he is the underdog at plus 176. For this one, I'm gonna go with I'm not being biased at all. Brandon Allen used to train in Wisconsin, and but I'm gonna go with him. He's on a remarkable 7-fight win streak. Coping over a split decision win over most recently Chris Curtis, and before that he beat Paul Craig and Bruno Silva. While Nasruddin Imavov, he's coming off 2 wins, one against Roman Dolidze, and most recently a 4th-round TKO win over Jared Cannonier. That Jared Cannonier fight, how the stoppage was, I don't know. I'd like to get your opinion on that one, Nick. But I just wasn't. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of a weird, awkward ref stoppage. But regardless, a win is a win. And before that, though, before the Chris Curtis loss, he also did lose unanimously to Sean Strickland, which is understandable. It's Sean Strickland. But that being said, Sean Strickland exposed some weaknesses in Nasruddin Imavov in terms of you need to weather that storm and keep pressing forward. And I think Brandon Allen is a great fighter to do that. And what I like about Brandon Allen as well is that he's got good boxing hands, but not only that, he's got great submission skills. If not, I would say he's got better submission skills. He's probably he used to be, I guess, almost like a grappler first, almost like Gerald Meerschaert, which I believe, similar to Jared Meerschaert, I should say. I was going to check to see if they fought each other before, but I'm not seeing it. And they used to train together before for sure. And that being said, I like Brandon Allen so much as an underdog. I see a lot of value in him. And Nazarene Imavov, out of his 4 losses, 3 of them have come by decision, and he's only lost once by submission. He's never been KO'd or TKO. I don't think Brandon Allen can KO or TKO him, but I definitely think Brandon Allen can take Nazarene Imavov's back and rear naked choke him. I definitely think that could happen. Or I can even see him just winning himself. Uh, uh, Overall, either unanimously or split decision. Nazarene Imavov, again, his striking is pretty lethal. On the feet, it's going to be a really fun one because Nazarene Imavov, he lands 4.58 significant strikes per minute, while Brandon Allen lands 3.98. And both absorb not too far from each other. Nazarene Imavov absorbs about 3.33 significant strikes per minute, while Brandon Allen absorbs 3.83. I definitely think that Nazarene Imavov, he's gonna throw the faster punches in this one. And how they match up physically, not too far off from each other. Nazarene's 6'3" and Brandon Allen 6'2". Both have a 75-inch reach span, so no one really has an advantage in this one. And when it comes to the grappling, again, I'm a Nazarene can definitely hold on his own for sure on the ground, but I think Brandon Allen's gonna out grapple him for sure once they do go to the ground. And I only think it would be a matter of time until Brandon Allen takes the back and goes for a submission. So this one, I like Brandon Allen a lot. I like him a lot, and I'm really sorry. I just realized this is actually my 1 weight, Nick. So I skipped my 2 weight and went straight to my 1 weight.
I was going to ask you about that.
My apologies. I went straight for my 1 weight. So this is my least confident pick overall. My least confident because Nazarene Imavov, again, dude is a beast, and just beating Jared Cannonier definitely, again, it was a weird ref stoppage, but you cannot deny what he did to Roman Dolidze before that with that decision majority win over Roman Dolidze. He's definitely shown how good he is, and he can make it for the taking of his own, and he could possibly beat Brandon Allen. I don't think he would finish Brandon Allen, but I think if he were to beat Brandon Allen, it would come down to decision. So this one, I got Brandon Allen. I'm not as confident in terms of he's my least confident pick just because how good Imavov is. But I am confident in Brandon Allen's grappling skills, where I think it can lead him to victory in this one. So, sorry I skipped my 2 weight, Nick. But what are your thoughts on my 1 weight?
Yeah, man, I like Brendan Allen. He's also my 1 weight. I think Imavov is rightfully the favorite. There's no doubt they stopped his last fight against Cannonier a little early. I mean, we can even look at, I believe it was Ribovics versus Zellhuber 2 weeks ago in Noches, and I remember watching that fight, and Ribovics was just laying it in to Zellhuber. Zellhuber's back was to the cage, and he was just doing this. And he was just taking shots the entire time. And they didn't end the fight. And even the announcers, I remember Joe Rogan and stuff was like, oh my gosh, fight's over, blah, blah, blah. They clearly had a discussion with the refs, is what I'm getting at. They cannot let these fights end early if a guy is still moving, if he's still conscious. Like, yeah, if you're just sitting there like this taking shots, they're going to end the fight. But if you're moving, which I believe Cannonier was doing in that fight, you don't end it. And you just never know in a situation with these professionals where you could come back, man. You've seen it happen. You see it happen in all sports where teams, players, people, they're down bad and they make a comeback. And to be honest, even with that Zellhuber example, he came back after taking all those strikes and still looked good. It didn't look like he was just on the brink of losing his consciousness. He stuck it in there enough for a judge to give him the win, which look, that's a whole nother discussion that I can't go down right now because I'll get upset for no reason. But either way, I do like Brendan Allen here. I think Brendan Allen's going to take more risks. I think he's going to be slightly more aggressive. And for those that think he isn't that big of a threat on the ground, I don't quite understand that. Most people seem to think, oh, Imavov stuffs all the takedown attempts to stay standing. Maybe. Okay, yeah, maybe, right? Brendan Allen lands half of the takedown attempts that he's attempted in the UFC. So, okay, statistically, though, if Brendan Allen attempts 2 or 3 takedowns, he's landing one of them. And all we need to do is look at his 2 fights back in 2023 when he submitted Paul Craig. I think we can all agree that Paul Craig, debatably the best jiu-jitsu practitioner in the division, in the weight class, and he got submitted by Brendan Allen. This guy has hands. He has the ability to grapple you on the ground. And if he gets a knockdown on you, like he did against Bruno Silva, it's just about over, man. It is just about over. And the one thing that led me to putting Brendan Allen as my one weight and not my 3, 4, or 5 weight is just respect for Imavov. We saw him what he did against Roma Dolidze, and that was impressive, man. He absolutely dominated Dolidze for 25 minutes. And that's not something we've seen Brendan Allen do really against anyone. Like, he beat Chris Curtis in 25 minutes, but that was not dominant. He really only won that because of his takedown ability and his control time on the ground. He didn't even attempt a submission against Chris Curtis. So it's one of those things where it's like, can Brendan Allen continuously at least continue the up arrow, right? He's been getting better and better for the last couple of years. If he can continue that trajectory, I really do think Brendan Allen's going to be fighting for the belt soon. And there's no way I'm picking against that. And to anyone who disagrees, let us know down in the comments below why. But to me, man, Brendan Allen really becomes next in line. I mean, yeah, okay, we could talk about Kyle, maybe another name. Brendan Allen, what he's done, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That'll be his 9th straight win in the UFC. We're giving belt shots against Alex Pereira to Khalil Rountree, who's got 5 straight wins. And we're talking about a guy who has 9 now if he wins this fight, and he isn't deserving of a shot. That's crazy. Give Brendan Allen the win here. Give him the next shot. Strickland already has a fight, I believe, lined up between I forget who Strickland is scheduled to fight next. I know Strickland. Let me check though, actually, real quick. I thought Strickland was going to be fighting next, but in any case, my point in saying that is whoever Strickland fights, and it's going to be one of those spots where, okay, you fight, and then the winner of that gets to fight Dricus, right? Or Strickland himself fights Dricus, because we already know it's not going to be Izzy. We've already seen that. That's already been done and happened. So at this point, you either do the Strickland and Dricus rematch. I mean, you maybe put Kyle in there, but nah. In my opinion, it's all Brendan Allen if he wins this fight. So we do agree. Brendan Allen gets the win here. Imavov's a stud. I think he's going to be a perennial gatekeeper of this division.
No, I hear what you're saying with that one. Yeah, this one, yeah, it's a tough one. Both are one weights, so I definitely think a lot of value in choosing him. He's definitely my dog of the week, Brendan Allen. So looking for that submission. That being said, I think that covers your entire 1 through 5. I think I just have my 2 weight then.
Yes, sir.
So for my 2 weight, this is the lightweight bout between Faraz Ziam and Matt Frivola. Right now, Faraz Ziam is the betting favorite at -128, while Matt Frivola is the betting underdog at +100. This one was a little bit of a tough one for me. I like Matt Frivola a lot, and I wanted to go with Matt Frivola. But I think in this one, Faraz, he comes from a good team. And, dude, he's on a 3-fight winning streak right now. He definitely is right now. Last one was a split decision, but before that, he had 2 unanimous decision wins. While Matt Frivola, on the other hand, he just came off a first-round KO from the foot of Benoit Saint Denis, and that happened in the first round. And Matt Frivola, he's such an explosive fighter, and he comes from a great camp as well. And that being said, I know he's trained a lot with Aljo and Marab as well. And that being said, like he's an explosive guy, but he's almost like a kill or be killed type of dude, at least as of lately in his career. A lot of his fights are just either he's winning or losing right in the first round, and he's, losing to guys like he looked like he should have definitely beat them. Like it should, him losing the first round to Terrence McKinney, a guy that he definitely probably should have beat, but ended up getting KO'd right away. And then the Benoit Saint Denis fight, he looked good for what it was a little bit right before that head kick, just circling out, and Benoit Saint Denis just landing a perfect clean head kick on the head. Nothing you can do about it. Probably would have been a different fight and a more competitive matchup, obviously, if that KO didn't happen. So we don't get to see a lot out of him because just how quick he is to live and die by the sword. While Faraz Ziam, I think he's a little more of a calculated fighter. a little more of a calculated fighter and not as explosive as Matt Frevola. He's very pick and choose with his shots. And just I think he's just overall a slightly smarter fighter that he can get I think a unanimous decision win over Matt Frevola. Out of Faraz Ziam's 15 wins, he's a well-rounded fighter. He's got 5 by KO, 5 by submission, and 6 by decision. And again, Matt Frevola, he's kind of a well-rounded fighter too. 4 KOs, 3 submissions, 4 decisions. In this one, I just like Ziam a lot more. I think he's gonna land more shots on the feet. Even though Matt Frevola throws more shots per minute than Ziam, I think Ziam's probably gonna get the better end of the exchanges. Matt Frevola lands 3.71 significant strikes per minute, while Ziam lands 2.7. But Matt Frevola absorbs 3.57, just about as much as he's throwing out. So he's definitely taking some damage back. While Faraz Ziam, he only absorbs 1.72. So I like that striking differential a lot better for is in Ziam's favor. That is, and Ziam also he has a 4-inch reach advantage. So him being the slightly taller guy, he's 6'1", and he has a 4-inch reach advantage over Matt Frevola. I just think that I think he's gonna cruise his way almost to a victory in this one and get a unanimous decision win over Matt Frevola. Matt Frevola, I can see him trying to engage again. I mentioned he's trained with Marab in the past before too, so I can see him just trying to initiate the takedown right away, go for it first, and just try to impose his will. But I think Ziam's going to be good enough to ultimately not let it affect him at all, and he's just going to get back up on his feet and run Frevola down. And that being said, yeah, for us is my 2-weight. And again, just because I think he's going to get the win for sure, but Matt Frevola is just such a beast. Again, he's live or die by the sword. A lot of his finishes come in the first round, so at least as of lately. So if he does get a finish over Ziam, I think it's going to be in the first round. But if it goes to the decision, I'm definitely leaning Ziam all the way. So if it ends early, again, Matt Frevola most likely. But if it makes it even past the second round, I'm thinking Ziam is going to take the victory and cruise, because I think as the fights go on, Ziam gets better, and Matt Frevola, again, not as much in the third round, and he's lost in the third round unanimously to Arman Tsarukyan, so that's like no shame in there. It's Arman. So that being said, yeah, I'm not Ziam. I'm not as confident again. He is my 2-weight. Nick, do you have any thoughts on this fight?
I would disagree if I had to wait. It's Matt Frevola, dude. We can nitpick. We can say, oh, but he lost. It's Benoit Saint Denis. He lost to Terrence McKinney. Okay, so did Ziam. Ziam's never been KO'd. I mean, okay, but it's the steamroller. He can make that change real quick. I think this is a fireworks fight. I think there's a high chance this fight ends with a performance of the night potentially. Exciting fight. I'm very excited to watch it. There's 0% chance I have a dime on either side, because I see a killer in both of these fighters in slightly different ways. Frevola will come in and pretty much disregard the damage you're putting at him in an effort to give you more damage than he's receiving. Whereas Ziam kind of likes to calculated attack a little bit more. And I'd argue Ziam has less experience overall. So with those things, I think they kind of balance out to a net neutral for me, where I'm not able to really make a pick. I just have too much respect for both guys to where I can't lean either direction, really. I had to leave it off.
I totally get that. I totally understand. And yeah, this probably this was one of the tougher matchups for me to pick on this. So I definitely I probably would have gone a different route, and I would have threw in Ludovic Klein in it instead, and would have probably rearranged my my order. But yeah, this was definitely one of the tougher matchups. So definitely, I totally understand if you just don't even want to put your hands on it. But yeah, I'm not as confident. That's why it's so low. I'm just slightly a little more confident than the Brandon Allen and Imavov fights. So that being said, yeah, I'm going with Ziam as my 2-weight.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. I got to get going. Have a great afternoon. We'll be back next week. Make sure to tune in at our normal Monday time as always. Thanks for listening, and let us know down below who you're picking.